Welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. Tonight, as usual, we're soliciting questions and comments from you via Twitter at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page. And it pays off. It really does.
You'll find out tonight.
Winning. All right, as for introductions, my name, as usual, is the John Ruark from the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. And I will hand it off
Master.
A Past Master, not the Past Master. All right, Jason Richards.
Thanks, John. My name is Jason Richards. I am the junior warden, not senior deacon, of Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia, and the new chaplain of Perfect Ashlar Council number 349, Allied Masonic Degrees, as of last night.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Yay. Thank you.
There was much rejoicing. Juan?
Yay.
Good evening, brothers. My name is Juan Sepulveda, and I am the latest official member of Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in Kissimmee, Florida.
Golf clap.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, so that is your new lodge, right? You actually admitted from your old and adopted by the new?
Correct.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Robert Johnson.
Hey guys, Robert Johnson here from coming to you live from Waukegan Lodge 78 in Waukegan, Illinois, where I am the worshipful master, and you can catch me on the Whence Came You podcast.
Sweet. Nick?
Hi, I'm Nick Johnson. I'm a past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time Farmington and head of other bodies as assigned.
All right. And our special guest for tonight is Robert. Robert just threw us all off. Our special guest for our Apron episode tonight is Brother Patrick Craddock, and I'll let him introduce his lodge and any other affiliations.
Hey guys, it's a pleasure to be with you tonight. My name is Patrick Craddock. I am a past master of Collegium Ritus Austeri in number 779 in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm also the proprietor of the Craftsman's Apron.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. It's an honor and a pleasure. Okay. Let's move over to Masonic news. Jason, I don't know if you want to kick off the first and foremost thing that we've been hyping up for the past month now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Very exciting tonight. Since September, we have been going through this Sparklight campaign with these amazing bookmarks that you can get if you write in and ask us to send you one, or buy our pins because they're cool. So what we've asked you to do is, find a book that's meant something to you, that's really helped you out in your own philosophical personal journey. It doesn't have to be Masonic, as we found out from some of you, and just take a picture with the bookmark in the book. And the hashtag Sparklight, and why it's helped you, and why it might be great for others. So we had close to 50 submissions, and it was submissions from close to 50 people, because most of you submitted several different ones, and I learned a lot. But we decided to bring that part to a close tonight. We'll keep it going, but for now, we decided to pick a winner. Just somebody we could pick at random who participated and send them a little bit of a thank you. So without further ado, I will take it back over to John, who is...
The grand winner is... Drum roll, please. Joseph Schutz. Thank you. So we looked between both Facebook and Twitter, and we did a random selection, and we came up with his submission of Tim Hogan's The Alchemical Keys to Masonic Ritual, a book that I personally favored during our book club episode. So, yeah, we didn't pick it because it was a good book, but because he was randomly selected. So with that, Joseph, we will be in touch, and you will have a bunch of swag headed your way. So thank you very much for helping us out with that.
Maybe not a bunch of swag, but
a bunch of swag.
You'll get some swag at least.
Some.
But
bushel of swag.
Yeah, thanks.
Bushel.
Yes. A plethora.
A plethora of swag.
But for everybody who's participated so far, we've all learned so much from you. So thank you so much. Please keep it up because we're going to keep things going. We're going to start again from here going forward, and then we'll draw another winner here in another couple months.
Okay. In other Masonic news, there was some hot news this week about a time capsule that was discovered in Boston. And if we go and look at where this was, I do happen to have that news up as well. About a dozen workers spent more than 7 hours to excavate a cornerstone from the Massachusetts State House in Boston. Now, history shows that this was placed there by Paul Revere and Sam Adams. So that's Masonic news because they're both Masons.
Mm-hmm.
Reading different forums and trying to figure out where this came from. Apparently people have known about this. It's really not news per se. Nick, mute your mic. And yeah, you're ruffling your mic around.
Yeah.
And so people have known about this, but since there is repair being done to the State House, they decided to check that out. Now, I haven't heard if there's any, peeking in and inventorying it, but
yeah,
it's pretty exciting.
One thing I wanted to add is that in the process of removing the actual time capsule, a coin fell out. I haven't seen any pictures of it other than, not a close-up, but a faraway shot of them holding the coin. And they suspect there to be items in there, like coins, and people expect there to be an engraving. I don't know how they came to the conclusion. The lady that was speaking about it was part of the museum that is actually working on making the decisions on how to move forward.
Will it contain the Templar treasure? That's the real question here.
A facsimile of it. So it's like
facsimile.
a Templar credit card that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I heard it was going to have the actual silver spurs that Paul Revere had on his boots when he did the Midnight Ride.
Ooh.
Just kidding.
A fun fact, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it Paul Revere who made Virginia's Grand Master's jewel?
That is correct.
All right.
As far as I'm aware. Scott Sherman is listening. Scott, inform me if I'm incorrect.
Okay. Let's see. Any other discussion on the time capsule?
I mean, it's just really, really cool.
When is the date? Is there a date that says it can be opened, or are they just looking at opening it right now?
The reason they went to get it is because there was a water leak.
Okay.
In the building, and they wanted to prevent the contents of the time capsule from being destroyed. The lady that I saw speaking in the news, she kind of alluded to the fact that they were going to look to see if everything was intact and put it back.
Yeah, the last statement of the article that I'm reading says the box will be opened sometime next week and the contents examined, but placed back in for reburial.
Yep. And
so interesting.
Uh-huh.
Oh, sorry. Interesting commentary from our brother Scott, who is up in Boston and was on our Academic Lodges episode. I know it's not quite social media time, but the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts actually has records showing exactly what's in the time capsule.
Oh.
So it's no secret. Or is it?
It's no secret, but the public view is that they don't know what's actually in it. So once again, Masons rule the world. Nothing you can do about it.
Those Masons. All right, and last but not least in Masonic news, coming all the way from St. Louis, Missouri, is news that their beautiful downtown, the beautiful buildings that were built back in the 20s and 30s are now both a blessing and a curse because of the upkeep and the falling membership. So apparently it was sold for a paltry $6 million.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, well, you know, that's just what I carry around every day.
Let me just go to the ATM.
But it is unfortunate to lose ownership of such a beautiful building. I'm sure that downtown St. Louis will invest in that building.
Is that the valley down there, or where they all meet, or is that a different temple?
I'm not sure, but I do know that it is actually one of many that are in that arena because a lot of history was, as I understood it from some of the St. Louis residents the last time I was out there, is that downtown St. Louis used to be pretty much the Grand Lodge area. And
right.
As time, I mean, they had a huge shrine building, a huge Templar building, a huge Grand Lodge building, and I mean these things took up city blocks and more. Unfortunately, because it was so east of the state, that it was unfair to the other residents who were west of the state, and they decided sometime to move the Grand Lodge location to more of a central location, thereby leaving those beautiful buildings right there. I'm sure they stayed in the fraternity, but again, I'd hate to be dumped a huge building like that to maintain.
Yeah.
And they did do that. The Grand Lodge in Missouri is situated dead center between St. Louis and Kansas City, in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I mean, downtown St. Louis is not exactly a hopping place anymore, and so it's not. I'm not at all surprised that they had to sell this building. A lot of metro areas. I think Chicago had a similar problem as well.
Yeah. Send all your hate mail to nickclubsbabyseals@gmail.com.
Yeah, I was gonna say at least it's not East St. Louis. Yeah. I mean, come on.
But yeah, I think it's unfortunately going to be the first of many big buildings that are going to have to just go. I mean, we're hearing about it all the time. Our membership is down. These things cost a ton of money to upkeep.
Yeah.
Right. Any other thoughts and opinions on that? Alrighty. Well, it's about that time to roll right into this week's topic, Masonic Aprons. We've had this suggested by a couple viewers, and also something that I think both Juan and Patrick have some background experience in. I personally wanted to invite Patrick on due to his wonderful presentation he gave on the history of the Masonic Apron. And so I'll let him kind of give an abbreviated kickoff of kind of the evolution of the Masonic Apron throughout our recent history of the Masonic fraternity.
Great. Okay. The recent evolutions. You want to talk about the last 130 years?
However far back you want to go, bud.
Well, I'm sometimes it's easier to be asked a question and then have me just kind of. I'm happy to just. I just don't want to ramble as I'm doing right now.
This is only an hour-long show.
Okay.
Well, brother, with that in mind, I did have a question. Of course, we've heard some outlandish claims of the origin of the Masonic Apron, and some that are factual, based on your research and the time that you spent working with the accuracy of the story. What have you found it to be the origin of the Masonic apron itself?
Well, the origin is actually very simple in that the earliest Masonic aprons were taken directly from the operatives that speculative masonry was built around. Of course, we have the working tools of the operatives that we use in our degree work. We borrowed their apron as our badge as a Mason. So the earliest Masonic aprons were taken directly from operative stonemasons who wore a utilitarian garment, this apron, to protect their clothing. We kind of go into that in part of our EA degrees, don't we, when we talk about how we're supposed to wear an apron. And those earliest aprons were nothing more than an entire skin. They were designed to protect the clothing of the man who was wearing it. They were often very large. They were they were unadorned. They were very crude compared to what we think of a Masonic apron today. So from the earliest surviving examples of speculative aprons, that is the initial use of a Masonic apron in our speculative lodges today. They didn't decorate them. They didn't embellish them until a few decades after the formation of the Mother Grand Lodge, and about the time, well, shortly after the implementation of the Master of Mason's degree. So
So what led to all of a sudden the ornation of the aprons?
Putting embellishments on the apron?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, as those of you have seen the presentation I give, this is kind of one of the kicker moments when I do this presentation. But it's actually very true that after the initial flourishing of organized speculative masonry, and it spread from the Isle of Britain onto the continent of Europe, and it became very popular in France, particularly, and the French actually had this first great evolution in our badge as a Mason, and they were using their artistic skills to embellish the aprons. And so what really led to that first change from just a rough utilitarian garment to a more refined symbolic garment with images on it was fashion. It was men's fashion. These guys, the French primarily, they liked colors, they liked flash, they liked style, they liked mixing plaids and polka dots, and they started embellishing, using their great artistic skills to embellish these earliest aprons with images from the degrees or even allegorical scenes.
Mm-hmm. So, we have lots of pictures of George Washington, or paintings of George Washington with his apron. We're very familiar with how decorative his Masonic apron is. It's just a Google search away to see what George Washington's apron looked like. What was kind of the evolution of the apron from kind of the colonial period into the Civil War period? Did it stay mostly ornate, or did it become more utilitarian?
Well, it did. And the one thing that I have to back up and say right here that is very important to understand when talking about this period is that when a man petitioned the lodge, when he expressed an interest in joining the lodge, he went into this with the knowledge and the expectation that if he was voted to receive the degrees, it was his responsibility to provide his own regalia. The lodge didn't have a box of aprons sitting around outside the door saying, "Oh, here, it's got coffee on it, but you can use it," or if you're from far south as I am, tobacco juice. I mean, it really doesn't matter. But the idea is that it's the responsibility of this, in this time period, of the individual to provide his own regalia. So with that knowledge, when a man joined the lodge, and knowing that he had to supply his own regalia, he had to find someone to make this regalia for him. There weren't large regalia warehouses. You either had a family member who was good with a needle and thread, or there might be a seamstress or a tailor in town who could sew you one, or there might be a sign painter who may or may not have been a member of the local lodge who could embellish that with whatever that individual thought was the most important to him, what he connected with most closely in the degree work. And so in this time period from the 1770s up to 1860, right at the time of the Civil War, a man who was having his own regalia made had the ability to go in a couple of different directions. He could find someone who was good with needle and thread or a paintbrush and say, I like this imagery. I feel particularly connected to this portion of this degree. I might want the columns. I might want the faith, hope, and charity. I might want the beehive, things like that on my apron. Or if he wasn't that imaginative, he might be lucky enough to live in an area where there were people, sign painter or local artists, who were producing their own original design. And he said, hey, I've got $5 and I'll pay you $5 for that apron. And therefore he's still supplying himself with his own regalia, but he might not have chosen the design on it, but it came with a decoration that he liked.
Hey, real quick for those of you watching, I just screen shared something. I was at Alexandria Washington 22's replica lodge on their charter night, and they actually brought George Washington's actual apron out into the lodge room. And this is a picture taken without flash of George Washington's actual apron that I took with my camera. So it's pretty amazing. So normally they just have a replica of that apron out, but it's pretty cool.
But there it is. I mean, this was George Washington's very ornate apron.
Well, you know, didn't he experience apotheosis, right? Isn't that what they said on that one book? So I'm surprised we still have the apron. Didn't that go up with him? I'm so confused now.
It's like the Shroud of Turin.
What?
But one
Listen,
thing,
I'm just going off of what Mark Tabbert said. So
There's the first problem. Just kidding.
All right, Patrick. So how did things evolve from there?
well, the next great step in the evolution of the Masonic apron from this time period where a man was producing a design for himself or buying a decorative apron, the next great evolution was immediately after the Civil War. And there's a couple of things that came together at that time period. One was the Golden Age of Paternalism, where after the Civil War there were so many men that were rushing to join the sidelines of not just Masonry, but a lot of other fraternal organizations that also used regalia, like aprons, that there was a great demand for regalia. And that demand for regalia for the throngs of men that were joining these organizations were met by the industrialists of the time period. These guys that came out of the Civil War who were set up to mass produce products. They saw a need and they went after it to provide for that need. And what they did was they didn't take the time to say, hey, do you like this shape or this color or this design? They went into it with the idea of, we're going to make this as quickly and as simply as possible. So what they did was they had uneducated laborers, seamstresses, whatnot, that they gave chores to, and they said, here's two templates. Here's a square, here's a triangle. Cut these out as quickly as possible, sew them together because we've got to get them out the door. So you no longer have the elegant curves that you saw before the Civil War, but you see a new design emerge that is very simplistic in its design, and it's what we still see generally today in the craft, that it's the only thing we've been offered for the last 140 years.
So do you think it's because of just the swarm of the market that's really made it kind of mainstream now, and that when you see a curved apron, it stands out?
Oh yeah. Well, it's because, you know, you young men today, do you ever remember having to get up to change the channel on a TV?
What's a TV? I watch all my shows on the
Yeah,
Netflix.
see,
So.
I remember TVs that were black and white, and your daddy sitting in the chair going, "Go cut it on channel 4." But y'all don't remember
We do that with
that.
Chromecast now.
So y'all. It's hard for you to relate to that because you've never seen it and you've never experienced it, and that's what Masons today are going through. Also, they've never been offered or never seen anything other than what the craft has been, what's been available to the craft for the last 140 years. And so when they see something that is different from that, again, they're not real sure if it's Masonic or not because it's not what they've seen.
Yeah, we had a brother that we've talked to before, and the case was essentially he brought the case of an apron with curved sides and edges to his lodge, and they told him they wouldn't allow a brother in lodge if he had an apron like that.
Whoa! That is so irritating to me.
Yeah.
Let's keep going with that. Go ahead, Juan.
And I have been to lodges. You know how when you go to lodge, nowadays the custom is not for you to bring your own apron unless you're a past master or a district deputy or something like that. Usually brothers come in, at least in the United States, and there's a box or some sort of receptacle where you can grab an apron and put it on. Well, based on my experience, they're usually not leather. They're either a cotton or some sort of fabric, and I have even seen paper ones. If a brother is allowed into lodge wearing a paper apron, for somebody to have the audacity to stop another brother wearing a lambskin apron, regardless of the shape and the embellishment, I think it's.
That's really interesting you say that because technically they'd allow a paper square apron than an ornate, expensive lambskin curved apron, which just blows my mind. That's insane.
Is it bad that I remember going to a lodge meeting for a given lodge and we ran out of aprons, so we used napkins?
Yes, it is bad. But what I think the challenge is for at least Juan and Patrick, for those who are in the business of peddling wares, especially aprons, is when you have folks like, I know Kenneth Lotman has said a couple times on our page that in Texas they have rules from the Grand Lodge of what the standard size and shape of aprons are. And of course every Grand Lodge is sovereign, so every Grand Lodge can set their own different shape and size and standards. One, forgetting the history that Patrick's been highlighting, but also limiting the choices of what you can do with your aprons.
Yeah, that's a good point, John, and that's one thing I was thinking about that needed to be said, is that each grand jurisdiction is sovereign and they can make their own rules as good or as bad as they are. And they have the right to do that. And there's several grand jurisdictions where when I have people ask me to make something for them, I either have to say, well, you do realize in your grand jurisdiction, this is your standard or that is your standard. And but the thing that I tell them is, even if I'm making an apron to that standard, what I need them to understand is they should expect to get an apron of the highest quality standard, not the cheapest standard that me or anyone else could produce.
Mm-hmm.
The sad part is the highest quality standard still might not be enough for some Grand Lodge jurisdictions. Because what happens if you have a Grand Lodge jurisdiction that makes it so that one particular regalia seller has kind of the monopoly on it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with a couple of those guys.
I understand there will be different regulations based on different jurisdictions. That's going to happen. What I like to know is whenever a rule is created, I, as a rational individual, as a member of a society that values intellect and reasoning, I expect a good reason for it. And sometimes, and I'll give you an example. The fact that there are so many states that are dry, in which there cannot be a table lodge that contains wine, although it's a regulation that I'll respect and I'll observe whenever I'm in those jurisdictions, including Florida. But there's a part of me that thinks if we are encouraging brothers to have self-control, we're not giving them a chance to exercise that self-control, because we're putting all these restrictions. So I always forget the name of that virtue.
Temperance.
Right?
Temperance.
Yeah. So if we are called to exercise temperance and not given the opportunity to actually exercise it, and for us to be able to whisper wise counsel to a brother that perhaps is bending the elbow once too many times, then we're not exercising that muscle of temperance. And the same thing goes for showing, respect with our regalia.
So that actually brings up another question: is some of these rules may or may not be put there to standardize, right? To make sure we have a common denominator for brethren, and so what it does is it makes sure that people aren't feeling lesser Masons because they can't afford a nicer apron, or they don't have the money or the resources to have something very ornate, whereas your brother to the right or left of you may have just a plain white apron with no decoration. Since we're all meeting on the level, then is that something that's shamed? And I'll kind of throw that out to Patrick for his historical background. How was the different levels of decoration perceived as brothers? Was it a negative thing or a positive thing?
Well, I get that question a lot, and usually it's from people who say we should have nothing but plain white because every Mason should be exactly the same. We don't want to differentiate and highlight one brother's affluence over another's misfortune. And, that's the mentality that's gotten us in a lot of the problems that we face in the craft today, in that we don't celebrate individuals. It's become a accepted philosophy within Masonry that we're all the same. That's what meeting on the level means. And that's not what it means.
Meeting on the level is not communism, people.
Exactly.
We're not stormtroopers.
You got it. And that's, but, historically, hopefully all you brethren have had an opportunity to visit not only in your local area but other grand jurisdictions or even internationally. And you will quickly learn, if you have an opportunity to visit much, that every lodge is different. Every lodge's culture is different. Every lodge's makeup is different. And that's what needs to be celebrated. If we were all the same, the craft would die quickly. And so I'm saying that because historically you did have lodges that were made up of gentlemen who money was not an option for. But then you also had lodges at the same time period, maybe not in the same location, but they may have been, I don't know, let's say in somewhere middle Tennessee, where you had a bunch of farmers coming in to go to lodge. And they came in with their work boots, and their overalls and whatnot, or they put on their dress overalls to go to lodge, because that was the best. They respected the lodge, and that's the best that they had. Right. But they didn't look down at a brother who went to lodge in a business suit or white tie or whatever. It was, they were there to practice Masonry, and I think we've lost a lot of that today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's something that always comes to mind when I hear the argument that the reason for the prohibition or regulation of only white lambskin in the lodge is that everybody meets on the level. Oftentimes, that regulation has some caveats to it, and it is that past masters and district deputy grand masters and district instructors, they can wear some embellished ones. Then is that not a a way of showing a separation of level. So if the argument,
Well,
if
and
the argument is
Juan, that's a good point. Do I have 5 minutes to get back into a history lesson on this very thing?
Go right
Go
ahead.
forth and
Okay.
conquer.
So
do it.
bear with me because this may stretch, and I hope I don't get off track too much.
Boy.
But in the time period 1890 to 1920, when there was still part of this golden age of paternalism, and there were lots of new lodges that are being chartered, and you have regalia manufacturers who are making not only the aprons for lodges to wear, but they're also making the stations. They're making the chairs, they're making the columns, they're making the gavels, they're making the deacons and stewards' rods, they're making the ballot boxes, they're making everything that a lodge needs, and they're selling it to them. And they're offering different levels of quality for these things. So you have the big city East Coast Lodge that says, "Man, send us the best thing you got," and then you got the Middle Tennessee Lodge just going, "Hey, this is all the money we got. What can we get for it?" Type thing. But these regalia manufacturers, one of the things that they were doing when they would get orders, let me back up again here. In your grand jurisdictions, how many new lodges have been chartered in the last 5 years? One in the last 5 years? Yeah, one mostly. Okay, how many in the last 10 years? 2.
Couldn't tell you.
Okay, but the point is, in this time period that I'm talking about, many grand jurisdictions were chartering 20 to 40 new lodges a year.
Whoa.
Okay, so there were all these lodges that were needing this paraphernalia and this regalia, and these large regalia manufacturers were making it. And as they were doing it, because everyone knows, now y'all must all accept, regalia manufacturers are saints, right? So out of the goodness of their heart, they say, "You've got this is a new lodge, we're going to help you out, you've got new brothers coming in, we're going to send along a dozen aprons for you to use." Now, do these regalia manufacturers, do they send them the lambskin tricked out with bullion embroidery and emblems? No, they make them cotton aprons, and they send them to the lodges not only as a gesture of goodwill for the money that the lodge just spent with them, but for the startup lodge that might need temporary aprons until its brothers bought their own. Okay? So you got the plain white cloth aprons that start to enter into the Masonic scene, and these guys are wearing these. Combine that, or move forward about 15 years to the economic turndown of the Great Depression, and you've got lodges that want their brothers to come to lodge. They want them to come enjoy fellowship. They want them to come and participate, but the brothers might be saying, "We don't have money to pay our dues. We're not." Okay, look, you come, we'll provide you with an apron. Just come to lodge. Come and sit with your brothers in lodge. And so the lodge is the only game in town that has money to spend on regalia. So do they buy the nicest aprons for their brothers to come wear? No, they buy the cotton aprons and say, "We've got aprons for you to wear. Just come on down to lodge." So you combine these two things, and over a course of 20 years, and then the mindset changes to where the lodge has these aprons. All you got to do is show up. But at the same time, what's happening? As Juan was just saying, then it becomes the sideliners are wearing these white cotton aprons, but the officers are the ones that are wearing an embellished apron. They're the ones with the apron that shows the jewel of their office, that might have braid on it, bullion fringe on it. And then, again, maybe the deputy Grand Lodge officers and the Grand Lodge officers are wearing the finery. And so today, when you go to lodge, do you expect to see a sideliner wearing anything with any ornamentation on it?
Nope.
I did on my first meeting.
Well, if he's a past master, then yes.
But he served in office.
Yeah.
So
Right.
So we're now fighting. We're going back to what we were discussing earlier. Well, this is when we're talking about the shape of the apron. Now it becomes, well, this is the way we've always done it, and we can't question it because masonry never changes. It never changes in our living memory.
Good point.
But when you get back into history, then you see this argument of, this is the way we've always done it is not a very good argument.
It's even toxic.
Yeah, it's really funny how when those conversations come up, and at least in Northern Virginia here, about every lodge has its own painting of George Washington hanging up there, and you can just point right to the painting and see the curved apron and say, look, it's not always been done that way, right?
And it's under his jacket.
Kick him out.
Actually, Masons. Oh no, public ceremony. Never mind.
Well,
I was going to say Masons in Virginia wear their aprons underneath their jackets, except in public ceremonies when they're outside.
Here's another interesting question I want to throw out there to y'all, and this is one I talk about during this presentation that I give. How many of your lodges that you're members of or you visited do the elected officers wear officer aprons?
Yeah, ours do. Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
For the terrible sacrifice the officers make.
Because we're fancier.
Well, I can tell you why, and it's really kind of funny because these are things that most people don't think about in lodge. We think about esoteric topics, we think about ritual and whatnot, but even as something as simple as our regalia that we wear and that our officers wear, I start off by asking this question: when for those of you who are sitting in officers' positions now, when you were installed into that position, what were you installed with?
Jason?
An apron.
A jewel.
And a jewel.
You were installed with the jewel of your office.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
You're not installed with the apron of your office. There's only one grand jurisdiction I know that installs with both an apron and a jewel, and that's California.
Huh.
And
it's the jewel.
But otherwise, it's the jewel. So why do all of our officers wear officer aprons?
Wow.
Because the apron does not reflect the position.
Well, it's interesting, like here in Illinois, if somebody has to sit in a chair that they haven't been elected to, they're not allowed to wear that apron. It has to sit on the floor next to the chair.
See, that's lodge tradition. I don't know if that's in Illinois code or not. I'm not that familiar with Illinois code. But in most lodges, it is the lodge tradition that that works that way. But here's the story behind that. Why we do this today, and this is again going into in our collective living memory, this is the way it's always been done, is because around the 1890s, 1890, 1900, there was a sales guy working for some regalia company that was about to starve to death, and he had to figure out a way to sell more aprons. And he figured, man, if we put the officers' emblems on these, I can sell a set to every lodge. And they all got them now, don't they?
Yeah.
So he followed ABC. Always be clothing.
Hey-o.
So again, we've forgotten why we do this. It's tradition now that we do it, and it's fine. I'm not knocking it that lodges wear officer aprons. I'm knocking that no one understands why they're doing it, because it's not codified in most grand jurisdictions that an officer is installed with the apron of his office. He's always installed with the jewel of his office.
So
here's a question for you.
Go ahead.
All right. What's up with rosettes? Because this is my Knight Mason apron.
I'd say that's a Knight Mason's apron. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's based off of an Irish
Bring it up
deal,
again,
but
Rick.
it's still there we go. So here's my rosettes. Let's see if I can make this look all right.
Yeah.
And so
Man,
you
what
can
was the
see the
dues for that
rosettes.
thing?
Yeah.
Actually, they're the lowest ones I pay. I didn't say that though. I heard that.
So what's the deal with rosettes? That's the question.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a really good answer for that, simply because that's generally a European standard, mostly UGLE design from their, that apron with the rosettes or the towels for a past master goes back to the unification of the Grand Lodge in 1813. As part of the unification, they said, all right, we're not going to distinguish our previous membership with our particular style of regalia, we're gonna all wear the same regalia, and they've done that since. I don't know. Because it's a UGLE thing, I've never really spent a lot of time studying why that's been done, but it's an English thing, and I don't have a real good answer for it.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Juan.
I have a question. I don't want us to miss. We have seen so far in our conversation this evolution, first from the utilitarian form of the apron as it evolved into more of a ceremonial, esoteric, and we've seen 2 or 3 iterations of the Masonic apron. I would love for the next evolution to be for there to be more consciousness in the design and a more open acceptance. What would you like the next evolution of the Masonic apron to be?
Are you asking that to me, Juan?
Yes. It's a.
Well,
I kind of know what you're gonna say, but I hope I'm hoping you say what I'm thinking.
Well,
Play white weapons for everybody.
You know, a lot of people say that, and I laugh. I don't have a problem with that, honestly. What I want is, or what I would like to see, personally, is first and foremost, every Mason in the United States become responsible for his own regalia. Now, with that, he's got to start thinking about his own regalia. Exactly. And if he starts thinking about his own regalia, then he might start wondering, you know, why he can't reflect his own journey on his personal lambskin. Mm-hmm. And that's what I would like to see. Now, you're going to run into, you're never going to get every grand jurisdiction to say every man can design his own apron. You're going to have to live within the discretion of the grand jurisdictions. But I think it would enhance the experience of the craft if every Mason had to give some consideration to what his badge as a Mason should look like.
I like that.
That'd be interesting. I mean, there are marks that we make as Masons in other systems, and we have to give great consideration to what those are going to be. We can't change them for, ever. It would be interesting to see if we had that same mindset for designing an apron. Once you're raised as a Master Mason, hey, here's some ideas. You're charged with designing your apron.
I was talking to a brother recently who had visited a lodge in France, who said that particular lodge, and it was not widespread across the region where he's visiting, it was just this individual lodge, that each newly raised Master Mason had to design his own apron.
That's cool.
Yeah. So he said it was really fantastic to go in there and just see all the variations and variety.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jason, anything going on in social media tonight?
Yes, but before we get to that, I also wanted to throw back to our episode last week to say, everybody in the Swedish Rite has to do someone's getting a phone call or a text.
That's the Vikings are attacking.
Everybody in the Swedish Rite actually has to design their own coat of arms and their heraldic shield. So it's not that far of a stretch to be in charge of making Masonry unique and really your own, which is pretty cool. So let's see what we've got in social media tonight.
So I wanted to start off by thanking everyone for sharing pictures of their Masonic aprons on the Facebook page. I kind of threw that out there, and you guys delivered. You guys have some beautiful aprons, so thank you for that.
This is my part of the show. Hush.
Quiet, you.
Hush, you. No. We've had some really good commentary tonight, especially from our good friend Scott Sherman up in Massachusetts, who's actually posted some of the Constitution's of Massachusetts and the bylaws of the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts dictating that Master Mason's apron have to be plain white lambskin or other white fabric, 14 inches wide, 12 inches deep, square at the bottom, with white tie strings. It may be ornamented with blue lining, blue edging not in excess of 2 inches wide on the body, and 1/2 inches wide on, or tall on the flap. So it goes on. So it is really interesting that to see different jurisdictions and which ones are very open with what aprons can be, which ones have those unwritten traditional rules that as we found tonight aren't necessarily traditional, and then those that actually say, okay, aprons have to be this and this and this and not that.
So Juan, Patrick, do you guys have a record of kind of by state what your limitations are?
You mean which grand jurisdictions have requirements as to the specifications for the aprons?
Correct.
Sorry, Juan, I didn't mean to jump in
No.
front of you there.
No, go right.
Texas has very defined size, shape. So does Colorado.
But I mean, do you warn a brother before they order something from you to say, hey, by the way, your jurisdiction may have limitations?
Well, most of the brothers who come from those jurisdictions come to me and say, this is what our jurisdiction says we have to wear. Good. Can you make me an apron? Well, yeah, I can make you I can make you the best apron that you can get in that specification. But then I also have brothers from these jurisdictions who say, yeah, I understand that, but here's what I want.
Nice.
And no, I don't ask them if they're going to wear it to lodge. I don't ask them if they're going to frame it and hang it on the wall. That's their decision.
Yep. Good for them. Juan, how about you?
Yeah, I have been compiling as the orders come in, compiling a list of the specific different jurisdictions and the restrictions that they might have. The last thing I want is for a brother to spend a significant amount of money into getting a custom apron or a special design, and for then him to not be able to wear it. I have brothers who have expressed, just like Brother Kenneth, he says it has to measure this by this. I'm like, well, there's no restrictions on what you can put on your wall as a display, and as you can see, you can still have it on your wall.
Those aren't regulations. Sorry.
Yeah, not those, but if you, I love to see a well-crafted apron. I've seen Brother Patrick's work. I've seen it in person. I've seen it online, and it's an honor to be able to put our service to our talents to the service of the craft. This is what we do. We get inspired to create things that are meaningful, that have the potential of inspiring brothers. And when we see a brother wearing one of our aprons, I can't express how great that feels.
I want to share one thing too. Brothers, all of my degrees are in history. I never intended to be a regalia guy. It never crossed my mind. But I had an epiphany in lodge about 8-10 years ago. I was late. I was running in. I grabbed an apron out of the box. We were doing an EA degree, and I hustled into the room, wrapped this apron around me, tied it on, sat down, and it wasn't long after that before the master was presenting the apron to the newly obligated brother, and part of that he said, part of the words that he said hit me like a ton of bricks, and it changed everything that I've done in masonry since then. And he said, when speaking of the apron, to be worn with equal pleasure to yourself and honor to the fraternity. You put on a stained cotton, nasty, wrinkly, pulled out of a box that has no meaning for you.
Paper.
Are you wearing it with, pleasure to yourself and honor to the fraternity? We talk about how important the badge of a Mason is. it's symbolic for it's pure white surface, an emblem of innocence, all of these things. But then we just throw that out the door, and we allow guys to wear paper aprons or stained with coffee, tobacco juice, whatever is on those things.
Right.
It's anyway. That changed everything I did in masonry after that.
Wow. All right, Jason. Anything else?
Yeah, we've got Brother Mark McCarthy from Missouri who's been chiming in a little bit, and as far as officers' jewels and aprons are concerned, it's actually the same way in Virginia. In Missouri, it's actually codified that unless you are installed as that particular officer, if you're sitting in, you wear the jewel of the office, but you do not wear the apron of the office.
That's Illinois too, I think.
Yeah. And
I think that's funny because are they installed with the apron of the office?
No, they pull us up. When we're installed in Illinois, they pull us up. We have to be wearing the apron that we're going into.
Okay.
Yeah, same here.
The verbiage is, we install you with the jewel of your office.
Yeah. See, that's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it actually differs. In Virginia, it's an open ceremony, so it's not a Masonic secret. But there are different words in the ceremony for Virginia, depending on the office. Badge of your office, emblem of your office, instrument of your office. So it's not just jewel of your office. I think. I think for the master, it's actually we install you with the badge of your office, the square.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So, and that's about all I've got on social media tonight, John.
Wonderful. Well, given the interest of time, let's start wrapping up. And Jason, since you're on, I'll let you go ahead and close.
Hooray! Thanks, guys. As far as aprons are concerned, I think there are limitless possibilities, and I think you should be free to express yourself with your apron as much as you'd like. Of course, if you're a member of a Grand Lodge jurisdiction that actually has something codified, then you want to make sure you express yourself within the realms of that codification, if you can. But I mean, even if it's putting something on the back of the apron that nobody's going to see, it's still there and it can still mean something to you. So, aprons to me should be as individualized as your own Masonic journey and your own Masonic experience. So I say go forth and do some fantastic things because I've seen all sorts of different kinds of apron, and it's limitless to what you can do with them. So my name's Jason Richards. I've got a blog, 2 Foot Ruler, Masonry in Plain Language. Check it out, and thanks so much for watching. Thanks to everybody who posted a picture of their book with our bookmark and told us what it meant to them and how it sparked light in their own life. So that was really cool. Congrats, Joseph. We'll be in touch. We're really excited to send you a whole lot of swag.
Nice.
Bushels.
That's all I got.
All right.
Bushels. A plethora of swag.
Of swag. All right. We'll save our apron guys to the last, so we'll move to Robert.
All right. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate the insight on aprons that both Patrick and Juan bring to the show. I learned a lot about aprons tonight, Pat. I really enjoyed the brief history you gave on the aprons. As far as the apron goes, for me, I think it's a great idea to design your own or pick something that, maybe something that is already made that means something a little more special to you. When I was told to wear an apron, they said that it's the badge of a Mason and I had to keep it clean, meaning my actions outside had to represent a clean apron. It doesn't say it had to be white. It said it had to be clean. So I kind of look at that kind of the way it is. I don't think it needs to be just a white apron. I think you guys can do whatever you want to do with it, and it'll be awesome. So check out Whence Came You. podcast, Masonic, WCYpodcast.com. Comes out on Sunday nights at 9:30. And thanks for watching.
All right, keep up the good work, Robert. Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Nick.
All right. Well, I want to start by saying, showing for the viewers at home, this is my past master's apron, and no, it's not custom and all that stuff. I know.
It's square.
It's square, just like me, as my wife calls me, square. So I am square. L7 even, Oscar Mayer, foot long. But I really do like the idea of a custom apron. And fortunately, because I live in a state called Minnesota with a 75-page code, one of the shortest I think in the entire country, I took a look at it and I didn't see anything that said I couldn't have one. So any other Minnesota Masons out there, don't take my word for it, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so yeah, and actually what's really interesting is I also took a look at the code as well, and it appears that for us, in terms of the code, a jewel, for the badge of an office can either be the one appending on your neck, on the cord around your neck, or it can be the apron. So it's one or the other.
Wow.
But you don't have to have both. So it's either the apron or the cord, or both. And so, I have a blog, millennialfreemason.com. I posted up an interesting blog post after reading something from the United Grand Lodge of England's quarterly communication concerning exit interviews for resigning Freemasons, and I think it's pretty fascinating, the idea of having an exit interview to kind of figure out what these guys are leaving the fraternity for. So you can visit that. You can also go to reddit.com/r/Freemasonry. And we are approaching the end for the SNU pins. If you have not purchased your SNU pin, that's Little Alien, the Reddit Alien, we are trying to get those made. They are for the Seattle Children's Hospital. And if you can at all jump in there, let's do this thing, because we're only at like 41% of the campaign and we have 11 days left. So let's make this happen, boys.
$12. It's $12. I ordered
Too expensive.
They're going to be awesome.
I'm amazing. That's too expensive.
And he's wearing a plain white apron on his pin.
Yeah, can you really put a price? Can you really put a price on a gorgeous lapel pin?
Hey.
Yes.
I say no.
Save your money. Buy a TMR pin instead.
Nick, anything else?
No, that's it.
Thanks. All right, Juan. Let's start closing with some apron designers here.
All right, very quick. Thank you everybody for participating. Make sure that you do that. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it with at least 2 brothers, and keep the conversation going. Do you think it should be a plain white apron, and why? If you think that the apron should have something that represents you, your journey as a Mason, and perhaps the symbols that are going to make you a better man, then let us know as well. But we want to hear your opinion. You know my opinion. I think that your apron, whether you make it yourself or your wife puts it together for you, or you go to Brother Patrick's great work, or you go to mine, we are going to do something that is going to represent you. It's going to represent your journey, and ideally the symbols within it are going to remind you of the great lessons in our fraternity. So I encourage you to do that. Look at my work at freemasonryart.com. I take great pride in making these. These are not coming from a factory in another country made by someone who is not a Mason, who doesn't value the tenets of our fraternity.
Amen.
My work as well as Brother Patrick's is made with love. We want to make sure that when you wear it, as we said, it's with pleasure to yourself and honor to the fraternity. So go to freemasonryart.com, and I'm still shipping in time for Christmas, so don't delay. And listen to The Winding Stairs. Go to thewindingstairs.com, and you can listen on Stitcher or iTunes. So thank you for the support. Brother Patrick.
Okay. Patrick.
Wow, guys, this has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the opportunity to have been on here with y'all this evening. I feel like I hogged the program a little bit too much, and I didn't let other people get a word in edgewise. I'm bad about that. That's the old history teacher in me coming out, I reckon.
We learned so much. It was great.
But it was a great pleasure, and I hope that at the very least that the brothers who had an opportunity to join us this evening, that this just ignited a spark for them to consider their badge as a Mason and to think about its importance to them and its a role within the craft. And I hope that if there's a brother who takes that commitment to Masonry seriously, that they will visit Juan's work or the Craftsman's Apron, craftsmansapron.com. It's all I do now, and it's something I have a lot of passion in. Maybe y'all picked up on that this evening. My attitudes about our regalia, but if also the last shameless plug I'll throw in is if your lodge is ever looking for a Masonic education program, feel free to contact me at craftsmansapron.com. I travel all over the country giving this particular presentation. I'd be pleased to do that and discuss what it would take for me to get out to wherever your lodge is. Brothers, with that, I hope everyone has a very happy holidays, and I look forward to meeting you on the level all very, very soon.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Patrick. All right, yeah, so to lead into the holidays, again, as we're recording live, tonight is the first night of Hanukkah, so for our Jewish brethren, happy Hanukkah. And we may be meeting next week to discuss, hopefully, the St. John's Day of December. So we'll probably have a Christmas episode then too. But before we get into that, thank you, Brother Patrick, for joining us and giving us such a great wealth of information and knowledge. It was everything and more than I hoped it would be. I wanted to also share I've been drinking tonight from Brother Patrick's nice etched. It's more embossed etched, really. It's not just painted on there. It's actually deep engraved, beautiful glassware that he also sells on his website. So I'll give him the credit for that. I picked it up at York Rite Week last year, or this calendar year, and just have loved it ever since. So with that, I wanted to also highlight my past master's apron, which I'm very proud of, and
Beautiful.
That story alone had its own challenge with Patriot Lodge, which is the academic lodge. We wanted to emulate the academic colors of George Mason University, which is green and gold. And sure enough, we had to go all the way up to the Grand Lodge to determine, can we do a green bordered apron? And they said, well, you can't do purple or gold. We said, well, that's not what we asked you. We asked you, can we do green? Well, you can't do purple and gold. So after a lot of back and forth, and by the way, we did try to do rounded corners, but you could see how that ended up. So, nonetheless, it's a beautiful apron, and I'm honored very much every time I wear it. It was a gift from the brethren, and gosh, my heart goes out to the brethren for such a great honor to have such a beautiful badge of my previous office, and one I'm proud to carry around every time I visit lodge. So if you are, we really haven't gone much into our charities in the past couple episodes, but definitely that's around that time of year we definitely want to contribute to your charitable organizations. I know that I have through smile.amazon.com, as I've been doing a lot of my online shopping. Been definitely giving to my personal charity has been the Shriners Hospital. So every time I bought something on Amazon, I think it was 0.5% goes right to the Shriners for their hospital charity. So continue to do so, and if you're feeling generous, also buy a TMR pin. Makes a good gift. That's about all I have tonight. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.